This is your First Alert Weather Breakdown, a deep dive into how weather works, with meteorologist Jake Lambright.
Well, good morning, and thank you for joining me on the First Alert Weather Breakdown podcast. I am meteorologist Jake Lambright. A lot to dive into today, of course, across the Arklatex when it comes to our forecast. We're going to be going on a bit of a temperature roller coaster as we head through the next 7 days. We're going to get a little bit cooler behind this cold front today. Winds will pick up, and then we're back warmer once again as we head into next week. We've also got some rain chances out there on radar today. Not going to focus so much on those, not expecting severe weather or anything of that nature. That really our only big chance for rain as we go throughout the next week. Then a little bit later on, we're going to talk about severe weather climatology, which is kind of looking at the history of severe weather in the Arklatex to determine what severe weather season could look like for us as we head into the coming months. And I do want to remind you, too, if you're watching along on our social media feeds, whether that be Facebook or YouTube, please feel free to follow along and ask your questions. I'll be getting to those here in just a moment. All right, let's start with our wind gust as we go through the next couple of days, because this is going to be something that you notice out there in addition to that rain this afternoon. Here's a look at wind gust a little bit later on this afternoon. You'll see those gusting to about 15 to 20 miles per hour, and that will really continue throughout the next 24 hours or so. Here's a snapshot of things about 9 p.m. this evening. You'll notice some wind gusts again up to 25 miles per hour behind that front as it pushes through. Wind gusts expected to pick back up as we head into the day on Wednesday. You'll see wind gusts continuing about 20 to 25 miles per hour, especially across southeastern Oklahoma and eastern Texas. Some of those gusts could move into parts of northwest Louisiana as well. And then as we get closer to 9 p.m. Wednesday evening after sunset, that's when those wind gusts finally start to calm down for us across a lot of the area. All right, let's talk temperatures, because again, this is where things are going to be on a bit of a roller coaster as we go through the next 7 days. We'll start with your overnight temperatures with our freeze forecast. The only night that I'm really keeping a very close eye on will be Wednesday night into Thursday morning. You'll see right now we've got lows around 34 degrees. That's close enough. I'm not going to rule out a light freeze entirely. With that said, though, for now, in Shreveport-Bossier, we're at 34. I-30, areas north, probably going to see a light freeze. But even as far south as I-20, again, expect some frost across the area waking up on Thursday morning. Other than that, lows return to the 40s and 50s as we head through the weekend and into next week. So it's not looking too bad for us across the Arklatex. Now, high temperatures, on the other hand, I'm not going to see any kind of significant drop, of course, especially compared to those significant drops we've seen over the past couple of weeks, especially with that winter storm moving through. You'll see today, or tomorrow, I should say Wednesday, will be in the mid to upper 50s behind that cold front, closer to 60 on Thursday, and then from there, we're back into the 70s starting Friday and continuing on through the start of next week. So very much above average for this time of the year. And again, unseasonably warm for us across the Arklatex. All right, let's talk your 6 to 10 day extended temperature and precipitation outlooks. When it comes to rain, after today's rain chances, as I mentioned, we're going to stay pretty dry. And actually, before we get to a deeper dive into our extended outlooks, I want to talk about the next 7 days. Of course, today we've got rain chances. We've got rain out there on the radar right now. You can see that radar and the latest there on the free First Alert Weather app. Beyond that, though, look at that. Wednesday through Saturday, not looking at any rain chances at all. And then even when rain chances are back into the forecast, they are going to be very, very minimal, maybe 10, 20% on Sunday and Monday. As I was just showing you a moment ago, that extended precipitation outlook, not looking too great if you're looking for rain. And of course, we really do need that rain. Here's a look at that next six to 10 days. Again, looking at drier than normal conditions across the Arklatex. That's either the 7th through the 11th or the 8th through the 12th. Might have to update that here in just a moment. Now, when it comes to temperatures during that same time frame, we're looking at keeping it well above average. You saw it there on our 7-day temperature trend alone, keeping temperatures in the mid to upper 70s this time of the year. That, of course, is pretty warm, getting closer to 80 degrees. We might not stay there the whole time. What this map shows on your screen, I know there's a lot of reds and oranges. It doesn't necessarily indicate how much warmer above average temperatures will be, but rather the confidence. So those deeper orange and red colors just indicate a higher percentage that we're going to be above the average, whether that's by 1 degree, whether that's 10 degrees, 20 degrees. You kind of get the point there. So it doesn't really dictate where our temperatures will be. It just shows a very high confidence that we're going to be running much warmer than normal as we go through the next 7 days. We'll take a quick look at our rainfall totals so far, and then we'll go look also at what rain is expected through the rest of the day today. It looks like a few hundredths of an inch have fallen so far. And like I said, we've got rain out there on radar, especially in northwest Louisiana. That's where we'll see the bulk of our rainfall so far as we go through the rest of the day today. A quick check of the next 7 days. Let me pull that back up for you. Next 7 days, this is mostly today, of course, looking at kind of that quarter to half an inch of rain there across northwestern Louisiana. All right, we're going to go to a short break real quick. When we come back, we're going to dive into severe weather climatology. We're going to kind of take a look at a preview of what severe weather season could look like for us right here in the Arklatex. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this short break. All right, and welcome back. Make sure my audio is good here. All right, let's dive further into our severe weather climatology for the spring in the Arklatex. Kind of take a look at a preview what severe weather season could look like for us as we go through the next couple of months. We'll start off with average tornado activity. As you can see, not much during the month of January. We do have a little bit of the chance, a risk for tornadoes during the month of January. It's really across a lot of the southeast part of the United States. Of course, there's the question if Tornado Alley is expanding or not, but we in the Arklatex are more so in what's called Dixie Alley, which again also sees a good bit of severe weather. Here's a look though as we head into the month of February. You'll see overall tornadic activity stays low, but we can still sneak in a severe weather event or two in February, especially whenever we're running pretty warm for this time of the year, like what we're going to be saying as we go through the next couple of weeks. From there in March, that's when we start to see our official start to spring severe weather season. That's when tornado activity really starts to pick up over parts of the Arklatex, especially across portions of Texas and areas just to our east. Of course, we're no stranger to that, even in Louisiana here in parts of the region. We'll go to April. That's where for Louisiana things start to get a little bit more active as well. You'll see Texas there still having a very high concentration of tornado activity there, and then that continues into May. Once we get into May and beyond, that's where severe weather season really shifts out of Dixie Alley and becomes more of a focus for Tornado Alley. So think those tornadoes that you could see really well up in Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska. That's once we get into the month of May, that's where our severe weather risk here starts to wind down, whereas those up in Tornado Alley, again, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, start to see a little bit more tornado activity. That expands back into portions of Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois as well. You can really tell, very, very evident by the month of June, where the highest concentration of tornado activity is. And for the most part, it stays well to our north, again, in Tornado Alley, where you see a lot of those very photogenic tornadoes that are out over open farmland. They're not rain wrapped. Again, those are kind of the areas that you see there. As we head into July, that's when tornadic activity really starts to decrease across most of the United States. And then from there in August, again, it's very similar. We continue to see severe weather and tornado activity decrease across the board for us in the United States. Now, once we get into September, this is where things start to get a little more interesting for us. You'll notice those colors across the south that are starting to get darker. That indicates a little bit more in the way of tornadic activity, and that continues to increase going into October and November, sometimes even into December. That is kind of our secondary severe weather season for us in the Arklatex and across Dixie Alley, which is, again, a lot of the southeast. We're by the Gulf. We've got that warm, humid air that's constantly moving in, and in turn, that can help us see kind of our second severe weather season toward the fall, when we've got those really warm and muggy conditions, and then we start to see that cooler and drier air start to settle in. Again, that's kind of our second severe weather season, and where we see more in the way of severe weather across the Arklatex. All right, let's talk more on the risk areas for the month of March, April, and May. Here's a look at the greatest tornado risk areas in March, and you'll see out of that three-tier scale, possible, greater, and greatest, the Arklatex is really one of the main areas of focus whenever it comes to tornadoes in the month of March. Now, this doesn't guarantee we're going to see a bunch of tornadoes in March. Just generally, with our overall severe weather setups, in March, the Arklatex is kind of a bullseye when it comes to the tornado potential. Let me zoom back in here. We'll talk more on the month of April. It's a very similar highlighted area. Really, the four-state region into Mississippi and parts of Alabama have the best chance at seeing tornadic activity as we head into the month of April as well. Last but not least, we'll look at May. That's where, again, things start to shift a little bit. Tornadoes and severe weather are still possible for us across the Arklatex, but the greatest risk starts to shift a little bit further to our west. Think out DFW, Oklahoma City, out toward Wichita, Kansas, parts of Nebraska. That's where we start to see that greatest tornado threat shift again a little bit further to the west. All right, Arklatex tornadoes are monthly averages. You'll notice as we head actually from January to February, that average amount does dip at least just a little bit across our area. But then in March, it starts to uptick. April is the month where we generally see the highest amount of tornadoes here in the Arklatex. Then that amount slowly goes down in May, really starts to drop off by June. And then July and August, it is very rare that we see tornadoes in the Arklatex. We're in the middle of the summer where it's just hot, 95 degrees every day. From there, we start to see tornadic activity start to increase a little bit more. Start to see a little bit possibly by September, and then those numbers really start to climb, especially November, December, January is when we see the most tornadoes out of our secondary severe weather season. All right, I do want to talk a little bit about what we could see as we go through the next couple of weeks. And this is just kind of an extended look at the signals across the Arklatex. That this does not necessarily mean that anything is coming to fruition, but here's a look at some of our extended severe weather outlooks that we look at. And again, these are just signals. These don't necessarily guarantee that we'll see severe weather in the Arklatex. You'll know how models are and how data is beyond 7 days out. So these are just kind of trends that we watch to see if they still hold as we get closer to time. Again, not so much we are absolutely going to see severe weather in 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. that kind of thing there. So let me actually make this full screen so you can see this a little bit better. We'll start by taking a look at week 2 and week 3. See if I can't close that. I did not mean to pull that up that way. All right, we'll start off with week 2. So this would be February 10th through the 16th. And there are some loose signals there showing maybe an uptick in severe weather activity, mainly across central parts of Texas. We could see some of that, though, in parts of the Arklatex as well. What really kind of jumps out at me, of course, the next couple of weeks is that we will be very, very warm for this time of the year. Now, with that said, just because we're warm doesn't mean the next cold front that comes through, we're going to see severe weather or anything of that nature. I mean, we've been warm, muggy here these past couple times, even before this winter storm, and we did not see anything in the way of severe weather. So I do want to emphasize that me saying that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to see severe weather. Again, I don't want to scare anybody or instill fear or anything like that. That's not my goal here. My goal is just to keep you informed. Again, then as we head into the following week, so the 17th through the 23rd, you'll see some weak signals there for maybe some thunderstorms or some low-wind severe weather threats in the Arklatex as we head from February 17th through the 23rd. That's all that these are, though, are signals. Again, they need to be watched very closely. It does not guarantee that we have any kind of a risk for severe weather. Just some interesting setups we'll have to watch as we get a little bit closer to time. Sorry about that. All right. So before we go, I do want to take a look, see if we have any questions over in our Facebook chat. I will actually leave up the Arklatex tornado averages, though, for just a second while I work on pulling that up for you. So again, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you have any questions about this, I encourage you to ask those questions now. I'm pulling those up right now, and I'll be answering some of those questions here very shortly. I apologize. It looks like we're only going out to YouTube right now. A bit of a user error there on my part. All right, so I don't see any questions here on my end. So we'll go ahead and just kind of recap everything real quick. So again, we are diving into our primary severe weather season in the Arklatex as we head into the months, especially of March, April, and May. You can see our average amount of tornadoes, again, are going to be highest during that March to May time frame. And then from there, we start to see a dip for the summertime. Y'all know how it is. Hot, 95 degrees every day, not much in the way of severe weather. And then secondary severe weather season starts to pick back up for us in October. And really our primary months there for that second season is November, December, and January. As we head into the month of March, the Arklatex kind of in that bullseye for the greatest tornado risk. That doesn't mean that we could go the month of March without seeing a tornado at all. But when we look at history, when we look at the climate data, looking back in the span of decades, really the Arklatex is kind of that bullseye area for the greatest tornado risk in the month of March. Same thing for April. But then as we head into May, that risk really, or that bullseye shifts a little bit further to our west. So DFW, Oklahoma City, back through a lot of Kansas and into parts of Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri as well. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up for us here. Of course, I'll have your full forecast update coming up at noon on KSLA. You can watch that right here on the KSLA streaming apps, so the KSLA News app for your smartphone, your Roku, Fire TV. And if you can't watch it live, if you've got that app on your smart TV, you can always watch that on demand. So if you want to watch that forecast a little bit later today, you can watch that 3-minute forecast on demand with your smart TV app. Again, that KSLA app's free. Don't need an account or anything. No subscription. It is a great tool to use. And for severe weather season, we'll be providing a lot more updates. Of course, we've got time constraints on the air, so we will be providing a lot more updates over there on those apps as well. All right, thank you so much for joining me this morning. And again, I'll see you right back here on our streaming platforms at noon with another weather update, KSLA News 12 at noon. Y'all have a great day.